Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Barely Bookish podcast. Today we are watching a Wuthering Heights movie, the 1992 version, which, according to Rotten Tomatoes, was terrible, and according to us, also terrible.
Yes. Yes, you are correct.
Mhm.
I don't always believe Rotten Tomatoes, but they were correct this time for sure.
Yeah, pretty spot on, actually. It was pretty rotten. Not gonna lie to you. But we're gonna talk all about it, and then next week, or in 2 weeks, we will talk about one that Rotten Tomatoes liked, and we'll see if we like that one. And I have no idea because I haven't watched it yet.
It's was it 1938 or something? Like
Something like
it's
that.
it's old.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like somehow that definitely means it should be better than 1992.
And I had high hopes. I really did.
hmm The
Hmm.
cover of the movie, like the
Yeah.
pictures, it looked promising.
Yeah. And
No.
then it just was downhill from there.
Yeah.
So,
I think it's kind of that early 90s curse though. It's a little bit
yeah.
risky.
I know. It's either like, I feel like with 90s movies, it's either like cult classic, best thing,
hmm
like since sliced bread, or it's like the most god awful television you've ever seen,
Yes. But even some of the things that I in the day thought this is the best thing I've ever seen, when I watch it
Mhm.
now, I'm like, no, 90s, what did you do?
Mhm.
This is why I need therapy.
I know. It's like it's funny because I didn't grow up watching a ton of TV or movies, so it's really funny to me when like I end up watching some of these that people are like, "Oh yeah, it's the best," and I'm like, "Okay, like let's watch it." Like I can't. Who did I watch Bridget Jones' Diary with?
That's the best.
I know, and then you rewatch it and you're like, "Oh my, oh God,
God.
okay,"
It
you know.
is, it didn't age particularly well in some ways, but
Hmm.
you know. But you are I can't remember, but I think you might be a bit younger than me.
Yeah,
Quite a
I
bit.
was born in '98.
Yeah, oh. Yeah, I remember this from before that it was quite shocking. I expect everyone to be my age. And then I'm
Hmm.
like, "Oh no, I'm 12 years older." That's sickening. Oh my god.
it's it's funny because it's like I'm like a lot of the time I'm like, oh, I'm not like that much of a Gen Z, and then like my boss will repeat things that I say to her, and like uh we had like this entire discussion about what out of pocket means, and it was the funniest conversation I've ever had. Not really, but like it was really funny for me because like you don't realize that like sometimes meanings change, and it's shocking how quickly things change.
Yeah.
And so out of pocket, I guess, to a lot of people means that you're out of office.
What? No.
I know. I said the same. I had the same reaction. For me, out of pocket means like you're straight wild and you're going crazy, you
What?
know?
No, it just
What?
means I don't.
What does it mean for
Well,
you?
it means for me that you're paying with stuff from your own money.
Oh, yes. Also, yes, 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 yes. This
That's
was
the
like a
only meaning
spec-
I know.
Oh, okay. This was like corporate,
Hmm. Hmm.
like we're in a corporate setting, and then
Yeah.
um a manager was like, "Oh yeah, I'll be out of pocket," or some. What am I supposed to do about someone being out of pocket? And I was like, "Who is out of pocket?" And then
Hmm.
she's like, "What do you mean?" And I'm like, "What? You're
Give me the
telling me?"
goss.
Yeah, I was like, "Tea, sis. Like, what's you know?" And it's just it makes me laugh that things change, and I had
Yeah.
never heard out of pocket in a business sense before,
No. No, I didn't
and
even
it
know that
just
was a thing.
I know it made me giggle. But yeah, I just sometimes I'm like, oh, I guess I am like atrociously Gen Z sometimes. That's
Yes.
fine.
Quite young.
I'm just like, oh, it never shows. And then I'm like, what's out of pocket? Who's being
Ugh.
out of pocket?
Well, it was like when there was a really distinct period of time where millennials were really picked on. And I mean, that hasn't
Mm-hmm.
stopped, but it's slowed down a little bit. And I was
Mhm.
very much like, no, I'm not a millennial. Like, I don't count. And then, but as the years go on, I'm like, oh, yes.
Mhm.
Okay, yes. Yes, I am. Yep.
Yeah, I've always looked older than I am, so I was like, "Oh, I blend in." And I'm like, "Just kidding." Apparently. Apparently I don't do that at all. It's because I haven't been a corporate girly for long enough, you know? So I feel
Hmm.
like it's more obvious because I'm so used to just like talking how I normally talk all the time that trying to be a corporate girly, I'm like, "Oh no. Oh no. I don't know how to keep my mouth shut."
Yeah. You mean I'm not on my podcast saying whatever I want? What?
Yeah. What? People don't just listen to me for funs? I did not think I was a yapper. And then I was like, I literally have a podcast in which people listen to me every 2 weeks
Yeah.
for at least an hour. So I guess I am a yapper.
Yes. And you always find things to say.
I know. I like to fill silence. It's like literally been my job for like 2 years. So
Yeah.
whoopsies. For all my listening folks who aren't me and Jen. This light that's going down on my head is like making me look bald. I'm like a little insecure about it.
Well, I never noticed. Now I do.
Yeah, I know. I never have the light on, and then it was really dark in here when we started this, and I was like, oh, okay, never mind. I need the light on.
Yeah. It's
I can't
okay.
stop
It's not
looking
that
at it.
bad.
Okay, I can't look at myself. You know, you catch it out of the corner of my eye. I'm like, oh god,
It's distracting.
a little bit. All right, let's talk about this horrendous movie.
I had high hopes because
Yeah.
I really love Wuthering Heights.
Mhm.
And I was excited to see it on the screen, and I was excited to see maybe another interpretation of it.
Mhm.
And as I was watching it, I kept trying to be like, yeah, this is good. But then I had that like weird fake smile on that was like,
Mhm.
oh no.
Yeah. I was thinking it was going to be rotten in the way of it's a reimagining and that it would go away from the story,
Hmm.
which like kinda, but not really.
Well, I was kind of thinking, kind of like Twilight. Everyone hates the first
Mhm.
movie and says it's bad, but I love it and I think it's amazing. So I thought this was too going to be amazing in like this weirdly terrible way. But
Mhm.
see, with Twilight, it was funny. Like the
Uh-huh.
bad stuff was funny.
Yes.
And then in this movie, I thought the bad stuff in the book was funny, but it did not
Mhm.
translate that way into the film.
No, I think we just need to go through in order. We're going to
Hmm.
talk about it. I have a lot of notes. I've got like a page and a half of notes, which honestly, it was even difficult to write notes about this cuz it was bad.
Yeah, I was writing notes, I think, for the first third. I had just been kind
Mhm.
of jotting some stuff down to so I wouldn't forget, but then after a while I was like, I want to forget.
I
I
know.
stopped. I stopped writing
Yeah.
anything. I was like, oh, hopefully
So,
Rachel's got this covered.
oh yeah. Oh yeah, I got you covered. Not a problem. Let's start where we're introduced to this, okay? So we're introduced to this movie with a girl just walking through a field into a decrepit home. And I was like, okay, who is this? One.
Hmm.
Two, like, I was like, are they like I okay, here's my initial reaction. I thought they saw Wuthering Heights and then read Jane Eyre, got confused. I was like, that's what's happening, okay? That's why it's rated so badly. No. What they did, though, is apparently we're looking at Emily Bronte making up this story, and she's like a narrator, kind of?
Yeah, so Emily Bronte's the narrator instead of Mr.
Mhm.
Lockwood.
Yeah. But Mr. Lockwood's still in it for like seconds, which is
Yeah,
weird.
so I feel like you may as well just cut him out.
I know.
Yeah,
Yeah. And
but
then,
I think if I remember correctly, Emily Bronte got the idea for Wuthering Heights after visiting some abandoned manor
Mhm.
house. So I guess it was a callback to that. And I didn't mind it. But by the end, I was like, what was the point of that?
Yeah. Like, it didn't add anything for me. It made Lockwood irrelevant. Like, I wish they would have just fully taken him out. And then, two, for me, it takes you out of the story,
Mm-hmm.
because, like, a lot of the things that, like, this type of fiction does is it allows you to, like, almost imagine that these are real people, that, like,
Yeah.
it's telling a story about people that actually exist. And so when you're like, "Oh, yeah, and this is how I came up with this story," I'm like,
Yeah.
"Uh, okay,"
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. If they wanted a different narrator, even just like Kathy Jr. from the future
Mhm.
recalling the story, or Mrs. Dean,
Yeah.
or just keep, yeah, Mrs. Dean, I guess, was
Yeah.
mostly the narrator.
Yeah.
But Lockwood was the funniest part, not the funniest part of the movie, but or of the book, sorry.
Mhm.
But he did provide a lot of comic relief at points, so the fact that they made him such a small character is kind of annoying, but I mean, I guess also makes sense because he really was a small character in the book and he could have been cut out
Yeah.
completely as well then. But
I know. It's just I didn't like it. Oh, and then I had a lot of, like, weird audio sounds, for the first part of the movie. I don't know if you had that issue too.
I don't. Oh, I don't know what was it.
It was more like the audio just wasn't, like, lining up
Hmm.
right. Like, I don't know, one side was definitely louder than the other, and it just, like, felt like
There's. I remember. I
I don't
can't.
know.
I can't remember exactly, but I do remember a few times it going up and down in volume.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just felt
Yeah.
like the audio was, like, ugh, a little janky.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, I thought because it's supposed to be, set way back in the day, but it looked like it was filmed back in the like in
Yeah.
the on the first camera or something.
Mhm.
I was like,
I also feel like they couldn't stick to a time period.
yeah, no, not at all.
Yeah. Like, I mean, okay, so the thing with, Wuthering Heights is that, like, while they got messy when Heathcliff and Hindley took over, like, it wasn't originally messy, and that house was just a disaster from,
Hmm.
like, get-go, and it just like and then they put the, what is it? Thorncross?
Thrushcross,
Thrush
Thrushcross Grange.
yeah.
Yeah.
They, like, put it in a completely different era, so it was, like, gilded, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like I was like, we're looking at two very different time periods. Like, you got, like, royal England on one side, and then, like, the farm adjacent is, like, impoverished, kinda.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, it's to me, it was like imagining that this one house is, like, running water in the 21st century, and then the house next door is, like, 1800s, outhouse is just a hole in the ground, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
That's what the vibe was going on.
Plus, like, Wuthering Heights. That was a big house. Holy, like
Mhm.
that was like pretty much a castle.
Yeah.
I was like that. I mean, I believe it was probably big, but it seemed a
Mhm.
bit more grand than just like when they showed the outside of it compared to
Mhm.
when you went inside. Didn't really match.
Yeah. Yeah. It just and then it's, like, basically the way it made it seem is, like, oh, inside it's, like, a small manor house, the mom is cooking in the kitchen and everything, and they've got, like, their 2 servants or whatever, but, like, it does not line up. Nothing
No.
about that lined up.
And also in terms of time periods, I thought like Kathy had a mullet most of the time,
Oh my god, I
and
know.
everything was just like a little bit 80s. I was like,
Mhm.
okay, yes, you're in the 1800s, but also the 1980s.
Literally, everybody's hair is down, you know?
Hmm.
And I'm like, that, I feel like you would be hung as a witch if you had your hair down like that,
Yeah, I
but
don't think
okay.
that's allowed.
Yeah.
There's no like business in the front, party in the back in the in the 1800s.
My God. And the actress's laugh that she kept doing. I was like, nails on a chalkboard for me.
Oh my
And I
gosh.
know that like director was definitely like, do that laugh again. And I was like, oh God, stop, please.
It
It
didn't
was like
I
a
didn't
laugh track.
I oh my gosh, I didn't notice it. But she
Ugh,
was the only part of the movie that I could stand. The rest of them
yeah,
were so terrible
that's
that
fair.
I think I
Yeah.
just had a little crush on her. But she was played by Juliette Binoche.
That sounds right.
Yeah. And then like Ralph Fiennes for Heathcliff. I just have to say he Ralph Fiennes is a okay looking guy. He's fine. As
Hmm.
Heathcliff was terrible.
Yeah.
Was so bad. It was
So bad.
I couldn't I couldn't.
I ended up Googling them later and I was like, oh, Voldemort.
Yeah, right. Like okay, yeah, that makes sense. No. I mean, I think probably this is like kind of getting a little ahead of myself, but um before Heathcliff went really crazy in the end, I kind of
Mhm.
had like I was like, oh, maybe he's kind of hot. I don't know. And then in the movie, I'm like, oh no,
Yeah, I know.
I have no sympathy for this person at all.
Literally.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then they like gave them an actual romance storyline.
Oh, oh,
I was like, ew.
it was so bad.
It was really bad. It was like,
Oh,
and then they didn't age anybody at all. So everyone just was in their 30s, which makes the movie weirder,
mm-hmm. Yeah. For the from the
honestly.
time they're like 16 to 30, they're the same, and they dress the
Yeah.
same and look the same.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. And then oh, and then the actress that plays Catherine Jr. is just Catherine again.
I know.
They
I
just
was like,
dyed her hair a little lighter. I
I
was
know.
dying.
I was like, I don't know if this is good or bad.
I'm like, what in the low budget, honestly.
Yes.
So, oh, I did the math because I was like, how old are these actors and actresses at the point that they're playing these characters? So, Kathy, the actress, was 28 when the movie came out, and Heathcliff was 30.
Mhm.
So, I just,
So
yeah,
yeah, it's a bit old to be playing
16-year-olds.
16-year-olds. Yeah, I never they didn't convince me that they were teenagers at
Hmm.
all.
Yeah, and like the curling up in the bed and like low key
Oh,
seeming like they were banging.
I know.
I know. Ugh.
Cuz like it was alluded to that it wasn't alluded to that they had any kind of physical relationship in the book really, but
Mhm.
in the book they had like a really intense love for each other, and but it
Mhm.
was all just words and like
Mhm.
hugs and stuff. And then the fact
Yeah.
that they were like kissing
I
and in
know.
bed together, I was like, oh, like I was totally into whatever was happening in the book. I am so against what's happening on this movie.
I know. I'm like, where are your parents?
Oh my god, dead. But
The mom lived for a long time in this movie too.
I don't remember her.
She's around for a while.
Hmm.
I was like, oh,
Oh
hey
yeah,
mom.
yeah.
Like I confused Mrs. Dean for the mom a couple times, to be honest.
I confuse like anybody who was a woman that wasn't Kathy, the only other woman in the movie. I They were all one. And I was like, and then close
Yeah.
to the end, I was like, oh, this is Mrs. Dean. Okay. I don't know.
I feel like they weren't like identifiable enough, you know?
No.
I don't know. I thought Heathcliff throwing the plate was really funny. I'm just gonna note that. It made me laugh.
He had quite a few temper tantrums that were
Hmm.
pretty good, but also like cringy. Like, oh god.
Hmm. Because it was always like he'd just long pause, stare, 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 pick up plate, throw it. Like,
Yeah, he really had to think about that one.
hmm. Hmm. Kathy was not vindictive at all, which was also weird.
Yeah, she was really sweet and
Yeah,
nice.
I know. And it like she would just be like, "Oh, Heathcliff," and I'm like, "Oh God, stop,
Yeah,
please."
because they were supposed to be kind of equals,
Hmm.
and in this case, Heathcliff took all the bad qualities and traits, and
Hmm.
Kathy was the complete opposite.
Hmm. And it was a lot more dramatic though too in this movie when she starts being mean to Heathcliff because it's fully out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought the
'Cause
scene where she's telling Mrs. Dean about how she's accepted Edgar's proposal and
hmm.
that she couldn't marry Heathcliff because it would degrade her. I actually thought she did that whole scene really well.
Hmm.
And like when she finds out that Heathcliff heard, I was like, that
Mm.
was like the best part. I was like, hey, good job, good job. I
And then they
felt
make her
it.
run outside in a wet t-shirt,
Yep.
all white.
Yes. And I was like,
Very
oh,
90s.
I was like, okay, here we go.
Yeah.
Best part of the movie over.
Yeah. I know. I thought that scene was done well. It was kind of the only good scene,
Hmm.
honestly.
Yeah, I had hope still at that point. I was like, oh, this is good.
Hmm.
No, after that, not at all.
No. I have so many notes about the little laugh that they keep doing, and it's annoying the shit out of me.
I'm gonna have to listen.
Oh my God. It's like a
Um,
laugh track.
That's so funny. She really reminded me of one of my friends. So I spent a lot of the time like just taking videos of her doing stuff and sending them to her girlfriend to be like, this is exactly like Marion. She's like, well, I can see the resemblance, but like, not really. I'm like, no, exactly. I can't even believe it. So I was very distracted by
That's funny.
that.
You're very forgiving of this girl's annoying laugh then.
Yes, because she reminded me of someone that I could like. So
Yeah, fair.
who
I
doesn't
wish I
have an
had that.
annoying laugh, by the way.
Yeah. I wish I had that connection to make this a little more bearable for me, to be
Yeah,
honest.
yeah. It probably helped me quite a bit, actually.
Mhm. You know, you're gonna just like take the rose colored glasses off and hear the laugh that I talked about once, and you're like,
Oh my
all
gosh.
right, never mind.
Yeah. Yes. It's probably a good thing I didn't notice that, or it would have been a lot worse.
I know. It's like once you notice something for the first time, it just like every time it happens again, you're like, oh my God.
Yes.
So the other thing I thought was funny is that like in the book, Edgar was like a rich fancy boy. Or sorry, in the movie, Edgar is like a rich fancy boy. In the book, he's like just doesn't really like Heathcliff. But in
Hmm.
this one, he's like basically King of England, essentially. You know, like
Yeah.
fancy, like all white shoes, you know?
Yeah.
And he's like, who is this dirty, dirty peasant that has graced my lands? And then in the book, he's just like, oh my God, Heathcliff, shut up. Like, I cannot stand you, you know?
Yeah. And then, well, also the actor, I mean, he was probably also fine, but I was like, ugh, why can't there even be one attractive person in this movie?
I know.
Like, Edgar, come on.
Give me some eye candy, please.
Yeah, come on. Why am I watching this? It's
Like, it
bad
doesn't
and
ask for
everyone's
much.
ugly. Just like the way that they portrayed the characters was like not attractive at all.
I know.
Like they're fine, they're like good-looking people, but the
Hmm.
characters were so gross.
Hair and makeup did no one any favors.
No.
So we find out that like officially Heathcliff purchased Wuthering Heights in this one, which I don't think he ever actually says in the book.
Uh, I know.
I thought it was more so like left to him.
I think
I don't know.
so.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's getting into like the family tree of who married who and how he gets
Yeah.
things, but I know that Hindley had a bunch of gambling debts, and I,
Yeah.
I think he took care of them in exchange for staying there. But I don't remember him buying Wuthering Heights. But I don't
Yeah.
know. I can't remember.
Because in this one, they flat out was like, "Oh yeah, he took a loan out on the house, and I bought it." I was like, "Oh, okay,
Yeah. That's extreme.
yeah, go off, I guess." Um, I wrote down so like after Heathcliff returns, sh Catherine's like, "Let me go walk with Heathcliff, Edgar. Like, I'll be back in the house in a second." And all I can imagine is like Edgar looking out the window as like Catherine and Heathcliff are just straight making out.
Right. Yeah, like I'm sorry, Edgar is not just letting them go off. He is looking out the
No,
window for sure.
I
And
know.
yeah,
Nothing comes of it. They're just straight macking
yeah, right outside.
right outside. And oh god, and like the other thing is too is, you know, she continuously is like, "Oh yeah, Heathcliff, that's my brother." And then like
Yeah, well the fact that she keeps saying that and then keeps making out with him, I'm like, ew, like
yeah,
no.
yeah, like
No,
gross.
don't say that.
What?
I'd rather die than make out with my brother. Truly.
Yeah.
No. Like not a chance.
Cassandra Clare's taking notes right now, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
so then after that there's the whole teasing thing about Heathcliff liking Isabel. Or sorry, Isabel liking Heathcliff. And then Heathcliff just starts making out with her after he's like, "Listen, I will wear you and just steal your fortune." And Isabel's like, "That's hot." Like, girl, what?
I know. I mean, she was also like that in the book. It was like, ugh.
I feel like it was way more subtle in the book, you
Yeah, I
know?
think so. And in the movie, he just says everything out loud,
Mm-hmm.
straight up.
Mm-hmm. It felt like someone wasn't sure. Like, it felt like I was watching the Cliff Notes version of a book,
Hmm.
but someone that was like very literal.
Yeah, well, I think that if someone's reading the book, you can kind of assume that maybe they have a brain. But watching the movie, you
Mm-hmm.
have to assume maybe they don't.
Yeah.
So you really have to spell things
Yeah.
out.
Like I've I don't even know. Like I've never seen something where they assumed that everybody that was watching it was like absolutely stupid
Hmm.
to
Well,
this
who's
level.
who's watching Wuthering Heights the movie that hasn't read the book and is familiar with the story? Like no one's going for that, I don't think.
And the crazy thing to me too is that like this movie doesn't make any sense had you not read the book either.
Oh yeah.
So it's like while they're being atrociously literal, they also cannot follow like a plot line.
Yeah, could you imagine watching this without knowing the story and seeing this like romance between them? Oh my god, what would you think?
I don't know. Like
Oh,
it's so bad.
it's bad enough when we know the truth.
Mhm.
If
Cuz
that's
I
the
don't
only thing you know, oh god.
cuz like him being like not actually related to them is so glossed over.
Mhm. And he's also vile.
Yeah.
He's ugly, dirty, greasy, so
Uh-huh.
greasy, and
So greasy.
not in any way redeemable at all.
No. Like he's not even like ruggedly handsome, you know?
No. And he's not really that nice to Kathy either. Like he's just all around not good. So I'm like, ew, why? This is not believable that like
No.
there's supposed to be two sides. The one that's like terrible, and then
Mhm.
the one that's just like misunderstood and sad and like been
Yeah.
abandoned as a kid and then treated horribly his whole life.
I know. And he,
Yeah.
like, wasn't I mean, I guess he was treated pretty badly, but, like, not to the same level,
Hmm.
you know?
Yeah, they did not really go into detail about
Mm-mm.
like he just one day looked dirtier and came out of
Mhm.
the barn. Like he wasn't.
Mhm.
I don't know.
And the thing is too is, like, listen, as a woman, there's something about, like, a man that has his hands dirty that I'm like, "Oh, yeah," you know?
Yeah.
And, like, that it's it's not that hard to do in a
No.
movie. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
get it
even
together.
even Hareton, like I feel like they really tried to make him hot, but he just wasn't.
Mm-mm.
Like,
Mm-mm.
and he was also a good-looking person, but
Yeah.
the character was no, it was just
No.
not attractive.
I know, like, most of the actors and actresses in outside of this movie, decently hot people,
Yeah.
you know? And then they, like, put him in this movie, and I'm like, is it the wig that we've got going on? Like, what is it that's making them being like, oh god, you know?
Right. Oh, and it's supposed to be like passionate and stuff, so it just feels like
Mm-hmm.
something's got to look good, but no.
I know they try to convince us like Heathcliff was like Fabio. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's what I was. I was like, yeah, no.
No,
And then blonde Kathy is just even worse.
so bad.
And it was
I
like
was so confused.
weird blonde, like yellow blonde 80s hair.
Yeah, yeah, like not natural at all. I don't know. I don't know. Okay. Do I have anything else? Oh. Oh, the fact that they like decided to randomly make it so like Isabel is visibly being physically abused. I was like,
Yeah, it was
I
a
mean,
bit.
they hinted that she was being abused, mostly verbally.
Hmm.
I was
Yeah,
like,
it was
oh,
a bit extra
yeah,
in the
yeah.
movie for sure.
It felt very like 90s. Oh, if it's not physical, it's not real, you
Hmm.
know?
Yeah, yeah. Um,
Oh, Hindley seemed to take decent care of his kid. That was cool.
yeah. What's his name? Linton? Yeah, Linton.
Hmm.
I just had made a note that eventually, like in the end, not in the end, but when Kathy Jr. is supposed to marry him, and he was like just looked like he had the actual plague.
Yeah.
And she's just like, "Are you okay? Are you sick?" And he's like, "Nope, I'm just tired." Meanwhile, he has like
Hmm.
purple bags, he's sweating, he's all
Hmm.
gaunt, he's like he looks like he's actually about to drop dead. I was like, "Oh my god. What? Why?"
Yeah. They took things very literally here. Um,
Also, Kathy, like Catherine Senior, her dying wasn't as dramatic and like temper
no.
tantrumy as it was in the
No.
book, and I was disappointed in that.
She just was like, "You guys killed me," and Heathcliff's like, "Literally, what? What did I do?"
Yeah, and then in the book it was like she's like, but then like they don't really say like really why she died, but it seemed more
Mm.
like it was of an actual illness and not just her own will. I was
Yeah,
like, I don't know. You're taking all the good drama away.
I know. And then like they made out in her bed, and then she died. I was like, okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Oh my god. And I was just remembering Heathcliff being dead. Oh, I laughed so hard when I saw his
Oh
dead
my god. I
face.
know.
Oh,
I know. It was so bad.
so bad.
And then we had
Sorry, I'm all over the place.
It's fine. It's fine. Oh, in this one, Catherine Jr. doesn't inherit Wuthering Heights at all, which is weird.
Yeah, because
It
she
like
would,
immediately to
right?
Linton.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I was like,
I don't know.
okay, like what's the marriage for then? That doesn't make
Yeah,
any sense.
no, it doesn't. Again, if you hadn't read the book,
Mhm.
you'd be like, what is happening?
Oh, and then Heathcliff word for word telling Linton exactly what to write made me laugh because it's like, while that was like kind of implied in the book,
Yeah.
it wasn't like Heathcliff being like, all right, and here's what you're gonna say. Catherine, your eyes are so blue. She has green eyes. Oh shit, that was her mom. Her her
Yeah.
green eyes.
At first, when he was reciting the letter, I was like, oh my god, please tell me he's not actually writing this to her. And then when it was like Linton, I was like, okay, thank God.
Yeah,
But oh, it made me very unhappy.
Pearl.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then they like randomly have Lockwood show up at the end. Oh, also Lockwood, she was like, Catherine was like, don't put your candle next to the window. And the second he walks in, he immediately sets that thing on the window. I'm like, bro.
Right. I thought that for a second when the ghost of Kathy showed up, I was like, oh, that might be kind of scary. But then she
Yeah.
comes closer and I'm like, oh no, it's so bad.
It's so bad. And then he's like, it looked just like you.
I
And
know. I was like, no, it didn't. They didn't even try to make it look like her.
it's so funny.
Uh,
Oh my god. What a movie. What a movie.
yeah. I mean, I don't really regret watching it, but also I wasn't willing to watch it for a second time.
No. I'm glad it was free.
Yeah, that helps.
That did help. Hopefully this next one's better. Also, like they barely even brought up Emily Bronte at the end.
Yeah, I was like, what's the point of, like, if you're gonna have her, show more
Commit.
of her. Yeah. I don't know.
Like, and she didn't really narrate. Like, she could have narrated throughout, you know?
Yeah.
Like, it could have been like a Princess Bride moment, you
Hmm.
know? Like, if they really wanted her in there, which they did not need to do, it would have made more sense had Mrs. Dean been our narrator.
Yeah.
But I don't.
Yeah.
It didn't make any sense.
No, it didn't. Sigh.
Sigh. Hopefully, the next one's better.
I have hope.
I have hope too. And then we can watch. Then we get to read Secret Garden after this, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. And then you get to watch that movie, and then you'll finally know what I've been talking about this whole time.
That'll be great. But we will see you all in 2 weeks with hopefully a better movie. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
Bye, everybody. Oh, wait.
Bye.
Just kidding. Just kidding. Where do the people of the internet find you and your podcast?
You can find us. We are In Her Good Books podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. And you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at In Her Good Books podcast.
And we'll catch you guys right here in 2 weeks. Bye, everybody.
Bye.